following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello and welcome to The People's View. I'm Carl Seidel and my co-host is Kevin Avard. The program is sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee, and tonight as our guest we have the candidate from Ward 8, Pete Silva, running in the special election.
Yeah,
Pete, welcome
who'd have thunk
aboard.
it, Carl?
Congratulations.
You never know. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be different.
Yeah, well, that's, you don't have all the other people coming out this time. So how's everything going? You have your campaign lined up?
Well, yeah, we're getting started. I'm not actually in a primary, but I just found out recently that there is going to be a ballot. So I guess I could be beaten by a write-in. They form a real large write-in campaign, but the Democrats have a primary. But
so you have to be on the ballot for that.
I guess it's separate ones. So again, never doing this before. I wasn't sure how it worked, but that's kind of what they do.
Just look at it as free advertisement.
Yeah.
So, and when is that date? That's September?
17th.
17th.
September 17th.
Okay. And do you have contact if anybody wants to get in touch with you?
Yep.
Throw money at you? Or
I've
something
got my
like that?
email. They can contact me, which is pretty simple. Pete Silva, staterep@gmail.com.
Oh, very good. Very good. So you've done this before in the other elections. This is a little bit different. So you're going to do the same kind of campaigning and.
I don't think things have changed in that regard. I mean, I still believe big time in how politically correctness is ruining the country. I think there's issues in the state that we still need to make sure don't. We did hard work last term with voter ID, which, again, I can say it a million times. I still don't. I can't fathom how anyone could really take a lie detector test and say, no, you shouldn't have voter ID. It's just crazy. So I know they would try to pick away at that. I want to make sure that doesn't happen. I also want to go back over this whole the welfare system we have. The EBT thing that we started to deal with last term. I'm pretty sure, I'm not positive, but I know Mass is #1 in the contiguous United States, behind Hawaii and D.C. At almost 52 grand a year is what the equivalent is of a welfare recipient.
That's amazing.
And
why work?
Well, and they won't. And, and that's the thing. I think, we kind of think the same way in these things. But, like the saying goes, you teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. And that's the whole thing is they get used to that. And if you're happy living like that, you get a roof over your head. That's one of the big ones with Mass is Section 8. And New Hampshire is in the top, I believe it's the top 10. So a little state like us, we're spending a lot of money on that. Where Maine, for example, is like 47th.
Wow.
And Maine is 47th because they don't do Section 8. So obviously it's a big chunk. If you're, it could be $1,500 a month. I mean, I don't know what the rents go for.
What's the incentive for doing it? On the state's part, why dole out all this money? What do we get in return?
I think a lot of it. Yeah, I really believe that.
I know that was the obvious answer,
but again, it's who's paying attention to it, and I think that's the key to it. It didn't take me long to get over the election, primarily because I started a new job and things like that, and we both know it's tough in our state if you're working to be up there.
Right.
But then when this opportunity came about, it's hard to turn your back on it because that's what they want you to do. And they've infiltrated in several ways, especially with the firemen that are up there and the different unions that are state reps that are voting on these things. That's another thing I want to work on. I really believe that they should get elected. There's no problem being elected, but you should not be voting on budget-related issues when it comes to pensions. It's just ridiculous. I mean, there's people who have to turn in conflicts of interest with, if you're an insurance salesman, there's insurance things like that. How
if you're
can,
benefiting
yeah,
directly.
I mean, come on. How can you be voting on your pension when you're a rep? It just doesn't make any sense, and I just think no one really exposes it.
And that's really significant because California, I mean, we've already know, was it Detroit?
Oh, yeah, look at them.
Their pension system is killing them. And they're not the only ones. So I think New York is coming up very shortly.
Well, they're all the same. I mean, the bottom line is, I don't believe in being an Indian giver. You know, you made a promise,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you know,
Agree.
you should probably do the best you can to take care of the people who are grandfathered in. But what's going to happen is eventually, like Detroit, as you said, you're going to go to cash that check and it's going to bounce. So what are you doing? And I think you probably noticed the same thing that I did. It's almost like they've adopted the mentality of, you know, we're going down, you're coming with us. And you know, it's the things that have to be said. We saw Alan West a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, and like he said, I guess Cruz is saying this now too. You got to fight. You don't have to be nasty about it, but you got to tell the truth. People need to know what the hell's going on. And I think I know the only opportunity you really get is when you're knocking on doors and you actually talk to people and you tell them some of the things that are happening, and that they don't even, sometimes they don't believe you.
And they're too busy working. They're too busy putting their hand to the plow, if you will. And I was just telling that to my wife the other day. It's just, we're driving, we get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We go work out. We go to Planet Fitness, we work out, and we see the roads. They're busy. People are getting up. They're doing their job. They don't have time to pay attention to a lot of the stuff that's going on, that's affecting them. It's not until, you know, up the road that they're going to say, wait a minute, what happened? Too late. Somebody took, you know, through your tax dollars or your liberty or all these issues that affect each individual. If you're not paying attention, it's kind of your fault, but we understand you've been busy.
Yeah, and I think that's why, well, we don't have the media on our side either, obviously. So if the media did their job, if they were quote-unquote journalists, and just reported the stories, you don't have to go one way or the other. Just tell the truth.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do. Just, this is what
Get more
happened today,
facts,
guys.
yeah.
Here's what's going on. But they don't do that.
Right.
So.
Instead of, here's your recipe for this morning, you know, weather and this and that, you know, good luck, traffic's this, traffic's that, and then you go out to your job, and meanwhile, somebody's at the house taking away or raising your taxes.
Well, and I don't know if I've told this story on air before, but I can tell it because the gal at work won't watch this show. She's in Mass. But we go back to the Friday before the general election, our last election. And I'm in my office, and there's a couple gals that work in there. They're both 50 or over, so they're not kids. In Massachusetts, and they're Republicans, which is rare. So, you know, I still had the plate on. We're still in office and everything. The election hadn't happened yet. And one of them says to me, so, Pete, what do you think is going to happen on the election? I said, well, if this Benghazi thing keeps going like it is and it blows up, because if you remember, just before the election, that weekend was getting kind of hairy. I think it's all over. Romney will win in a landslide.
But he pulled his punches.
And she looked at me and said, what's Benghazi?
Oh, my gosh.
So then I looked back at her and I said, see, that's where we're in trouble. And again, if Romney had, like I was screaming at the TV that night, if he had said something, I've said this several times, that's your chance. They can't edit it. It's live TV.
Right.
If you want to get back at these guys, that's the time to do it, is on a debate,
4
live
Americans
TV.
left behind. Hello.
Just
It's
tell
not
them.
a YouTube video.
And all these claims about having false
narratives.
False things. They aren't false because they, and then when they even try to punish somebody for Benghazi or something else, they're bringing them back. You know, no punishment.
I said to my wife, and I hope she's not right.
Scandals,
She
that's
could
what-
be right. I said to her just this morning, I said, so what's going to happen when he starts launching missiles into Syria? Are they going to start saying, you know, Obama lied, people died,
Right.
like they're doing with Bush? What are the lefties going to do this
right,
time?
Right.
You know, my wife said, they'll blame Bush. And you know what? They probably will.
You know what they'll also blame him for is the fact that all those weapons of mass destruction ended up in Syria.
Yeah, which was a theory
Right.
from the
and
beginning.
Now they're using the gases. Ugh. We're not going to solve that, but
I just, it's remarkable to me how the guy, I think he could literally go on camera, take a baby and cut its head off, and they would say, well, the baby probably should have its head cut off. I mean, he could do no wrong. The dear leader.
Well, let's get back to the local part.
Sure.
Enough about the federal. What do you think the state needs, besides a Republican governor?
Well, that would be the key thing. If we'd save a lot of hard work if we could do that with overrides or what have you. But we just need more people like us that are fiscally minded. And when I say fiscally minded, it's just almost common sense. Just try to run the state like you run your house. You know, you get in real credit card trouble, you're in big trouble. And it takes forever to pay it off. It's just common sense. And say no now and again. And I think we need to stand up to some of these maybe touchy issues. You know, the whole welfare thing's touchy, but it's the truth.
Well, what do you think about getting means involvement, where you're actually looking at what assets they do have, before they get... You want benefits to help people who need help, but you don't want to help people who don't have to have it. They could, you got to give them some incentive to go out and find a
And
job.
that's what you never hear.
well, you have Gateway here in Nashua. They do a good service for people that are disabilities, and there are other organizations. Those are legit. They're really helping out people with special needs. However, you got multiple families living in one little unit, just everybody over indulging, if you will, on the system. That's not fair. Get out and get a job.
You can't... You used to be able to do it. I sound like I'm 110, but I'm 53, and I said this before in judiciary. If you tell me now, if you're born before 1980, that this is a better world to live in morally than it was then, you have to be crazy. The Miley Cyrus thing, for example. But my point is, we're at the point where you can't just rely on people's morals anymore. They're going to have to be told right now. And the only way they're going to be told is you're going to shut them off and then let them start over again. That's the problem. It's just no one can say no. Like a kid. I mean, what do you tell your kid?
Well, worse than that, they go out and try to find people and tell them how to qualify.
Oh, yeah. Add more to it.
Yeah.
So I think if more people, I think we can almost do this at a local level or a state level. I was saying the other night at that Allen West thing, forget the party stuff. Forget supporting a candidate, give them millions of dollars. Why don't these big money guys, these PACs, why don't they go buy ABC or buy CBS or buy NBC or something like that? So you have more than just Fox News telling people what's going on. I think that if I were to get back in the House, any interview I do, they're going to put down what I said. And I'm going to make sure of it because it'll be the last one that I do. And I think if we do more of that, and so they have to start getting out the real stories that are happening and start hammering them.
You know what Senator White did, and I applaud him for this, and it was something that I thought was interesting. I said, are you doing any interviews? He says, no, what I'm asking the press to do, send me the questions, I'll send them to you in writing. That way it gets out. If it doesn't get out, I got the document right here. I don't know, it was Anne Marie Timmons. She was reporting on the redress committee. And apparently she did one interview with somebody, and I looked at it and I thought, my God, where did that come from? We're evaluating whether some of these judges are acting ethically. By the way, she's married to a judge.
No, that's weird.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's honest reporting. It's just in the light of full disclosure.
We have to get out media somehow. We have to have our own media.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Hopefully people listen to
the
it.
people who listen to shows like this, they know what's going on, for sure. Whatever side they're on, they know, though. But there's not enough people that see it. So the
Get out
Telegraph
there and
seems
tell
to
all your friends and
Well,
neighbors.
that's one of the
be
things,
getting better.
That's one of the things we're doing with the Center for Redress. Since they closed the committee, we got the Center for Redress up and running. And it's a non-partisan. It's not Democrat, it's not Republican. All we're doing is we're covering. And we're covering things of the courts, people who come in with their petitions. Totally nonpartisan, but it gets the truth out. And it's one way for us to be out there. It's needed. It's a need that it's just, there's a vacuum. It needs to be filled.
You have to bring it to the people.
Right.
There's people that are activists, people like us that are involved, that go and seek out, like look for trouble, if you will. But most people, like you said, they're busy, they're doing things, they're raising kids. I mean, you know, back when we were kids, you didn't have to be the teacher when the kid came home. You know,
Right.
the teacher taught the kid. And then you might help him with his homework, but now you got to do everything.
Well, you got to have your kid teach you how to do lattice. I don't know if they're still doing that, but I never learned that type of math. It was always 1 + 1.
Well, if you're lucky with Common Core with the new math, you don't 12 3 times 4 can be 11. Did you hear that one?
No.
It's all abstract.
So if they're going to focus more on, and I heard the interviews, it was like a big thing a few days ago. They're going to focus more on the theory and how you got to it than the actual numbers. So
Yeah.
if you can say, well, I thought if I took 2 4s, that would be 8 plus a 3, that's really 11.
I wonder how the pyramids would have worked out if they used that type of math.
There'd be some funky pyramids. I wonder how the doctors are going to work out when they're coming up
Well,
with that.
Pete, when you get reelected, do you know what committee you'd like to be on?
Well, I've always been on judiciary. I think I'm going to leave it to the odds this time. You know, again, it's halfway through. There's not a lot of controversial things left, I don't think, to.
Well, what was do you know the committee that the person you're replacing?
That's a good question. I don't know. He
Okay.
wasn't there a lot, though. You know,
So it really didn't count as,
yeah.
Yeah.
I know he was sick, and I guess he isn't. You know, he's older, but I don't think he got up there a lot. So I'm not sure what committee he was even on. And I guess that's up to the
yeah, it's
speaker.
up to the speaker, definitely. But
So she'll
usually
probably
you go
put
on
me
the
in janitor committee.
Oh, you get along.
Yeah, toilet patrol.
Okay, well, what else would you be working on? Are you going to be working with the HRA or when you were up there?
Yeah, I mean, I always was part of the HRA before. I mean, last time being in leadership, which I won't obviously this time, it takes up all your time. So I wasn't able to do much stuff like that. But the HRA is kind of how we got our start. You know,
that's right.
That was the. You know, I
We
don't
certainly
know.
had got a lot of help there, and
Well, they taught us. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, when you first go in there as a freshman rep, you know, the
Yeah.
first half of the term, you're learning the language. You're trying not to make a mistake when you speak at a meeting, and you know that's when you talked about redress. The part that drove me nuts that time was that my buddy there from Durham, what's his name, with the glasses, like the classic liberal hippie from the '60s with the great ponytail. and-
Oregon.
yeah. You know, for him to put it out in public, which again, a Republican could never do that, to name people by names, 2 of the people that I was representing,
Yep.
one enough to where she couldn't go because she was still in a court case, was worried about ruining her chances, and another one that was so scared was crying.
And her kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was a kid that was crying that I had to kind of talk him into doing it after all. But to be able to do stuff like that and.
You know, one of the things that really troubles me is that the Democrats come across as though they're the party of compassion. Wait a minute.
Completely opposite.
It's just the opposite. It was the Republicans that freed the slaves. It was the Republicans that were part of the civil rights. The majority of them were part of the civil rights. It's the Republicans that are talking about transparency in government. It's the Republicans that are listening. And yet somehow we get branded as just the opposite, non-compassionate. We're the ones with the ideas. I watched with amazement when we were in the House how that one Republican would be in one well and another one in another one, and they'd be going at it, you know, in a debate. And the Democrats would be sitting like this. And we'd be struggling with the ideas. We'd be, you know, working at it. But they would just sit there and would lecture us, and that'd be about it. And I'm just thinking, what, this whole idea of compassion, when Horgan did that to these people, they just came to talk to their government. Hey, look, we're hurting. We're hurting. Please help us. This happened. This has happened. Well, show me the documents. Here. Well, I don't see that. It was nuts. They were complaining, and they were petitioning, and he turned a deaf ear, and then, because he went against their God, the state, he attacked them. You know, and that's the problem.
That's their MO.
You're a whistleblower against the state. That the state can do no wrong. What's up with that?
Well, I mean, we're living 1984 right now. I mean, it's George Orwell just missed it by 20 years.
It's a little bit strange.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think that, you know, obviously one person can't do anything, but it's if you start to get there, I've known enough of the people that I can still work with the groups, and you know, I think there's still enough people left there that I get along well with, that it can maybe, if there's some things that are close, maybe help sway some things here and there. But it's just a start to get back in, and maybe set the stage for the next time that we can go. You know, we're never going to probably have the type of landslide we had in 2010, but I can tell you, I mean, you know, it is the national stage, but if this keeps going.
Yeah, people wake up, but hopefully it won't be too late.
I know, that's the thing, and even now, it's going to be one tough road to toe to flip this thing around.
Well, would you like some volunteers in Ward 8 to contact you?
We definitely need volunteers, because it really is, this is going to be purely,
Door
look,
knocking.
if there's 1,000 people vote, I'll be amazed.
Yeah.
An election like this.
You got to get them out.
They got to go. If they get out, you know, most of New Hampshire is really undeclared voters anyways. And most of those undeclared voters is because, well, a lot of them, they're sick of both parties, to be honest. They
I don't blame them.
want things to be, and I've said this before, if I could run as an independent, I would. Because I just think you should have bipartisan politics, but you're not going to ever have that with Democrats. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It's their way or the highway. And, you know, I've seen a couple things that throughout the years I were there that were somewhat shocking to me, that they would actually vote that way. But not many. You could, you know, voter ID, not one.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you have not one?
I remember watching the speaker go walking up and down the aisle going, the now speaker, not Speaker O'Brien, Speaker Norelli. She, you know, when it came up to vote or to speak, she would walk up and down the aisle going, just like that. And I thought, whoa, that's representation?
Yeah.
I've never
how they do
seen anybody else in ours do that.
Well, how do people contact you? Just by your Gmail address?
Yeah, you can do the Gmail address. You can call my cell phone, which is 966-0563. That's my favorite way
Say
to
that again
communicate.
for the audience that didn't have...
966-0563.
Okay.
That's my favorite way to communicate anyways. I don't like typing. We will probably have a website up, but again, not being in a primary, just not done yet. So.
Well, let's hope we can get some. If people out there like what you're saying here, they'll want to have you elected again. So that's what we need to do.
Well, I had a gentleman call me today and asked for a sign because he remembered me. And that was a pretty nice way to start, to be appreciated like that. Because as you both know, we do put a lot of time into it up there, and it is for free. I like that part of it. I just wish it was, I wish they had night sessions like aldermen do. So more of us could go there that work during the day.
Right, make a living.
Yeah.
You probably would cut down some of the bloviating that goes on if you know, start packing them in there.
Nobody wants to spend till midnight. Yeah.
You're not bringing your sleeping bag. But hey, you know what? And I'm sure you'll agree, Kevin, and Carl, I know you do. It was an amazing experience.
Oh, yeah.
If I get back in, you know, it'd be the same thing to continue it. But it really is an honor, and I don't take it for granted. When you walk in that hall and you sit there in the oldest unchanged hall in the country,
Right.
and you realize some of the people that sat in those seats, it's pretty moving. And people that were there,
And yet,
to be part of
people
history.
now calling our early ancestors, our early people, terrorists in a way.
Yeah, sure.
Now that is the difference. That is a difference.
And I think again, you know, that's all the years of the indoctrination in the
Yeah.
schools with having such a liberal leaning, especially the colleges.
I've been complaining about this for at least 20 years myself, just thinking, why aren't we doing something about this? Why aren't we freeing up the education? Who's running this party? It's driving
Look
me
at
nuts.
Louisiana. They have the highest charter school system, and they've turned it around. I was just listening to the other day with Bobby Jindal. It's amazing the difference with the charter schools, that the kids are given the ability. And you talked about, you know, Democrats, you know, being portrayed as a passionate group. Well, that's where they should start. These poor kids in the inner city. If you ever watch that movie called Waiting for Superman,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tearjerker. There's these inner city kids in Harlem. That's their mothers. Most of them don't have fathers, But they know this is the shot to get my kid the hell out of here.
Well, that education choice thing that's being held up in the court here in New Hampshire, that's not for the rich kids.
No.
That's not, that's for the poor kids. Give them a chance.
But go back to, why is that? Geez, you know, anything you want to know in anything in politics, just follow the money.
Right.
It's the teachers' union. That's all it is. That's all it is the teachers' union.
And the bad part about it is I don't believe personally that most of the teachers back that.
They don't.
Right.
It's the hierarchy in the union that just
I know a lot of
demands
teachers.
it.
They're
So do
great.
I.
They're fantastic. They're dedicated. But like Carl said, they're not behind all this extra stuff that they have to do.
And to be a teacher today, to deal with it, look at the thing that we had with the, remember the bill that, it was actually one of my bills, to sponsor so a teacher could protect himself and a student.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the guy from North that testified twice. And ironically, when it got voted down, the governor vetoed it. But that day was the day the kid threw a 3-hole punch at a teacher, hit him in the face. Remember that?
I don't remember.
It's about, I don't know, 3 years ago.
No, I don't remember that one.
So, you know, things like that, when you're a teacher and you can't even touch anybody. And then, you know, one of the major reasons I got into politics was my son.
I remember saying
That whole thing with the lacrosse thing. Some of the thugs know that if you're a varsity sports player and you miss tryouts, you're done. So if you fight, if I pick a fight with you and you fight back, you go too. What the hell kind of thing is that? You can't defend yourself. I went all the way up to the superintendent, who was the interim one at the time. It was Seidel, but because the other one was stealing money from us, she was on suspension with pay. And I just said, look, all I want of this, the only thing I want is a permission for my son to protect himself. Can't do it. So he had to take a beating so he could play sports. I mean, you can't make some of these things up. And I think if more people knew about things like that, there's little things you could tweak like that. I mean, to me, my greatest accomplishment was being part of this, you know, parental notification, getting that put back in the state, which to me, once you start again reading books about like that Unplanned with the woman that was the head of the Planned Parenthood in Houston, one of the biggest ones in the country, and she exposed everything. It's all about money. It has nothing to do with taking care of, you know, women's health and all that. Sure, they do that, but their big thing is abortions. That's what they do, where they make the money. And again, when you're going to have a medical procedure, how can you not tell the parents? You can't make it up. But then if that kid has something wrong afterwards, then now it's your problem. So that was really, to me, was a major
that was
achievement.
your big one, but you know, now you're reading about these abortion clinics that don't have any regulations, and what happens?
No, they're not under the same rules as like a hospital, where you have the Joint Commission. They're not under the same rules.
No.
So, you know, in the unplanned book, what they tell you is the money that the docs are making, because they can go there, they don't have they don't have malpractice insurance. You can't sue them. So it's like a factory, cash money. So again, you always follow the money in these things, and then you see what's happening. Now, why do the Democrats support Planned Parenthood? Because it's their #1 contributor. So of course they're going to support them. They give them tons of money. And
Our money.
Yeah. Well, in some cases, yeah.
So, well, Pete, we really enjoyed talking to you. Good luck in your election, your primary, and maybe we'll see you
You guys got to
again
come
before.
door knocking with me, sign waving.
All right, we'll do that.
I know.
So we'll help you any way we can.
Well, I appreciate it, guys.
And,
All right.
Got to get
hopefully-
you guys back there in 2014.
You got to
we'll
invite
see
me
if I-
fishing.
Tuna.
Okay, thank you very much for listening in, and please let us know if you have any ideas that you want us to talk about, or who you want us to invite, so that you can hear a story from this side of the fence. Okay, and don't forget, if you want to listen to go to a Republican meeting, it's held the second Thursday of every month at the Crown Plaza. Go to NashuaGOP.org and find out more information about the Nashua Republican City Committee. And thank you for listening.
preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.